favorite spots, but one of my favorites was the way you decided to make those sixteenths different. And I think that's somewhat key to how we can make this fugue subject really come alive. Because I tend to think of these sixteenths, this is an anapest rhythm. And it happens so often that I have to think of some way to alter that. And so what I came up with was it basically came from the score. I decided to do these as sort of, we don't know what's happening. So actually sort of snappy, And I like those rather separate. And now this one, because we have the falling fifth, I'm all of a sudden making those anapests a little bit more singing. Right? And now even more, because guess what happens now? So we can make that an evolution. We can start out snappy, we can get broader and broader. And we can also take into account the other element simultaneous with our anapests are these eighth notes. The biggest interval is going to need the most. And I think this has nothing to do with tempo. I think this has to do with being true to each part of the gesture. It sounds kind of hard to do at the beginning, but it becomes something that we can use the whole piece, because he's shown us this trick, and as long as we have a firm idea that I think this will work, then we can just do it everywhere. But doing it everywhere entails a lot of work, a lot of real calibration of the speed of the anapests, a lot of calibration of the intonation of and. There's another sort of equation. I like this, we feel this as an intrinsic connection, but whether it needs to be actually legato, I don't think is necessarily true. Somebody once described the nature of legato as the connection between two voices, not between two pieces of wood. And so we spend so much of our time, I want to make that really expressive, so I'm going to really hang on, make a really beautiful legato. That's not giving it. We want to actually thinking ahead. That's I think we can do that one legato. So if we're thinking of this as we're trying to make this an evolution of both of these elements, Ralph Kirkpatrick referred to different syllables within the fugue subject. So the anapest would be one syllable, and these eighth note interludes of a legato type of nature would be another element. And so oftentimes we have one element presented and then another one after. Here we actually have two doing it at the same time. I'm also putting in a little bit of a gogic between each one of these elements. If we think of this as one element, because if we don't take a little bit of space, we won't actually be able to perceive them as two parts of the same argument. It'll just seem like one continuous line. We want to really bring out the idea of these as elements, as characters. We want each one of them to have their own personality. So I'm taking time here, I'm taking time before there, I'm making the 16ths broader, and I'm taking time here. It all has to do with the gestures themselves. It has nothing to do with any kind of idea of tempo. It all needs to be generated from this. There was another wonderful thing that right away I knew you were my kind of guy. Because you did this exchange of voices so naturally. We didn't need to put too much agogic space in it because he marks it eighth notes, quarter note in the top voice, eighth note in the bottom. So what does he do? He plays the lower voice shorter. And that's what we can do in all of these situations. Even here. Here they're both eighth notes. The top voice I'm doing legato initially, which is hard to do. And then the bottom voice. I didn't do it terribly well. But then when you hear it, when you put it together here, it's just like a little bit of shifting the mirror. But it makes that differentiation, which I think is essential. The other reason to make that shift right there is that sometimes when we look at the left hand as an equal voice, we would probably pick that out with the thumb. But you see how if we stick with the top voice, it really starts to interfere with our ability to sing with the right hand. So that's why we want to find these opportunities for transparency. All these have to be acknowledged. And here. So all of this has to do with is acknowledging the differentiation between voices. Here again, the sequence. I like leading with the. It's very obvious to. We want to have that. But since we're doing it in exactly it's the same figure in parallel motion, I hate that. I hate when he does that. And so I think this is an opportunity for us to say, well, let's do it back and forth. So left hand I'm going to do first. So I'm going to bring this one out in the right hand because I can afford to now. It's going to be easier to go up because we don't want to join the right hand. We want to come from under. And so that's again another opportunity for us to use competing and contrasting dynamic arcs. The right hand is very announcing and very firm. The left hand is creeping up. So it has to creep up from below because it's going to be a sequence of 3 such creeps. So we don't want to give it away too soon. I'm also not only making a little bit of crescendo with dynamics, but I'm also did you hear I'm broadening those expanding those 16ths with a gaja. Exaggerate those voice exchanges. We need to take responsibility for each one of them. And again, decide which voice you want to have in these tandem sections. We don't want it to be like a Brahms. It's not Brahms, it's Bach. Whatever you like, but make some differentiation between the top and the lower voice. It's like what I was saying about these pieces being each an etude of execution of a certain sort of contrapuntal execution. And here's the one that you figured out right from the very beginning. That selective evaporation idea. Again, I do a lot of shifting of the mirror in this prelude. And I don't do it always at the same time. But in slow motion, if I wanted to make that kind of differentiation between voices, I would do a similar thing where I would probably do the right hand first quarter note rather legato, and the left hand rather detached, and then change. So that we don't have, because we want to avoid at all costs. We don't want to know about this parallel motion. That really does nothing for us. I had a moment about this long time ago, and I know players who have heard me play this and they think, no, we really need the decisiveness of the articulation. Really? Do you need it for 2 pages? Really? I mean, come on. And again, if we look at it from the standpoint of what a harpsichordist would have done with this, it just would have been a lot of noise if we just played it all in the same rhythm. So I'm paying attention to the harmonic environment. I'm going to take more time for extreme dissonance. I'm deciding that there might be something about this that we can actually let some air out of. I think whenever I find a possibility for this kind of wonderful harmonic change, and I want to somehow lighten it up, of course it's very difficult if we were just going to do it in terms of diminuendo. It's hard, and I'm hanging on to the keys for dear life, and it's not happening. So what we can do is we can actually, and this is almost a rule of thumb that I use for every long, unending string of 16ths or 30 seconds. If it's going down, the last 2 of that particular sequence, I'm going to do a little bit shorter. Or if not absolutely shorter, then a little bit more distinct. And so that comes in very handy here because I'm saying, I want to lighten up at the end of this. I don't want this to be, this does not connect. There's no stretch in the imagination. And we want the surprise. And it would be nice to actually, after this 4 bars of, I find this a very Mendelssohnian kind of Sturm und Drang. So not Prokofiev, right? But really stormy in an undercurrent sort of way. I mean, it's very, it's like this is the music that inspired Mendelssohn. I'm absolutely, and when I played the D minor trio, Mendelssohn, that was the first piece I ever did of chamber music in school. And I thought I was a real hotshot, and I was playing all the notes and stuff. And Benjamin Zander was my chamber music coach. And he said, you're playing a percussion instrument. And everything that you do is going to kill any sort of lyric sense of any instrument that you accompany. I was actually accompanying he didn't say it that nasty. He was an Englishman, and he would have been nicer about that. But for instance, I was accompanying his cello student, and he said, if she doesn't sound good, it's your fault. And so the idea of the Mendelssohn was, to have, instead of to do it as a toccata, to really try and make it a carpet of sound. So that's what I'm after here. So take time for it. Absolutely. And overhold it like crazy. Absolutely. Everything you want. Anything you want. Parallel voices. Make the left hand lead first or the right, whatever you want. Anything you want, Ayush. That's the whole idea of this thing, is to make you comfortable doing anything you want with this piece. I usually would say, well, we're going from a 2-voice texture to a single voice texture. So in harpsichord terms, that would sort of presuppose a kind of a lesser, softer texture. But here I think we've really built up to such a heat that we really have to look at this like it's not that we're going from two voices to one, it's like we're going from the cello section to the cello solo. So absolutely, as you do, and the more agonchic engagement we can have, the better. And I'm less concerned with the harmonies than actually the articulation that I'm using has to do with the close notes, the intonation, tension. The harmonic notes, I'm going to use them a little bit for just a little bit of resonance. Yes. This is a really hard one because I don't think that works. I think we have to do it like we're doing a duet for two cellos. And then this next one comes in. So we want to end that one in air, in mid-air, like a flourish, like a yo-yo ma bow flourish. And guess what? We can also insert a gaje before each one of these downbeats. And so we can actually, if we know we're going to take that space, that means we can be a little bit more sensitive in doing this as a sensitive sort of finishing in air. We don't have to feel like we're compelled to go to the bar line. And I know this is presto, but he had to write presto somewhere. But I think the first thing we have to do is, and then whenever you want. And this is where you went to town, Ayush. This was all about agogic. This was all about acknowledging every one of the exchange of voices. That's beautiful. You could do as much of that as you like. Also, we have to pay attention, even though it's presto, rising and falling. We have to acknowledge that dynamically. We don't want to present the sound. We don't want to maintain the sound. We want to create the sound. Or even, well, we're playing this pretty loud, so we can't overbalance it. And again, not only the entrances, but I'm still doing my shifting with the mirror. And you'll see that I've got slurred, and I've got these in parentheses. And now parentheses in the right hand, slurred in left hand. You see what's going on? We can insert more and more space. It's not even about a ricercato. It has nothing to do with time. It has to do with shape and space and inserting however much you feel you need. I think a little bit of a selective evaporation would be nice here so that we have a sense of the harmony as evaporating, and so each one of those voices of the chord is eager to hear what the top voice is going to do. We don't want to gang up on them and say, okay, we're all going to be off on two. Ready? That's just distracting, right? That's stealing his thunder. Isn't it? I mean, that's kind of cool because actually I'm taking the chord off just slightly before I begin this whole right hand thing, so that we hear that as the only voice singing. And so it's very easy to balance. There's that thing I was talking about whatever pattern you're in. We're used to looking at this in Chopin and just making it as smooth or as playful as we like. But no, I think here we have to actually take it in. Hear that? So I'm making a little bit of a distinction. So one is semi-connected, the other one is definitely distinctive, if not short. it's distinctive. And now here, he marks allegro that's as distinct from the adagio, but there have been other situations, Ayush, in which he's marked an adagio coda, like a cadenza, and then hasn't marked allegro. And then there are various editions that say, yeah, I think he meant allegro. Here he actually meant it and said it. But I think that we should still look at this material as part of this cadenza. So yes, I agree that it would be nice to move it a little bit more, but I'm much more interested in the cragginess of this interaction into the bass register. Oh my God, it's just growling like crazy. And harmonic, but also sticking our elbows out because of these craggy, diminished events. I love this because we have, and then we have the fugue subject. Right? It's all about trying to find ways of constantly calibrating the voices so that they're always differentiated and never in each other's way. Our whole idea of these separate voices should be to accommodate each other, to make each other sound as good as they can, and also to keep in mind that this string of 16th notes is not endless. It is all malleable and variable according to the harmonic environment, the immediate harmonic environment, the variables, the intervals. But yeah, the harmony is really those wrenching things. It's just insane. And so we don't have a moment of like, what did he do? Because it was just like in the stream of events. No, you can tell us. You can spend some time here. You can really revel in this absolute crazy dissonance, just dismal, really dark. So let it be that way. The momentum will be there whenever you want. Very, very good, Ayush. Thank you so much.